Joining us now to break down the coronavirus pandemic and how it intersects with the upcoming election is Dr. Manny Sethi, an orthopedic trauma surgeon and a Republican running for U.S. Senate in Tennessee. So, Doctor, I first want to start about the coronavirus pandemic and what it means going into November. I know that it's 3 months away, but this pandemic is not going away anytime soon for that matter. So by the time we get to November, do you think this will still be a major issue that isn't only big for the candidates, but also for the idea of voting itself?
Well, thank you so very much for having me. I think we got to just play on the offense through this pandemic. It's going to be here for a while. What America cannot do is shut down. We are the best when we go on the offense. I believe that we'll be able to have our election in November. And I think it is just so very important that we don't shut down our economy, that we don't stay at home, that we get America back to work and we keep moving.
And I'll start with the economy, because I know that that is a little bit of a controversial topic for whatever reason. I know what the reason is. It weighs the public health effects against the economic effects, and that's why some of the media kind of want to make it a this or that type of solution, where I think most reasonable people know that it's going to be a push and tug type of situation, where restrictions are going to be implemented with the surge of cases and then walked back in order to make sure that people can put food on their table, can pay rent at the end of the month. Is that something that you think Republicans, not only in your home state, but all across the country, should be demonstrating, that the Republican message is that to get people back to work so they don't have to be dependent on these coronavirus relief packages?
You're preaching to the choir, brother. Exactly. Look, there can be no economic strategy without a public health strategy, and there can be no public health strategy without an economic strategy. And I wish this guy Fauci would understand that. We cannot retreat and shut down the American economy. Look, we did that already. We're back where we started in terms of the numbers of folks with COVID across the country, and our economy is in a bad situation with high unemployment rates. The best stimulus for any economy is to open the economy. And right now, you got these career politicians in Washington. They're trying to add to our federal debt. They're trying to just throw money from helicopters, hoping it lands in the right place. And I just think, number one, I think we need to get rid of Fauci. I think we need a new public health strategy in our country to get through this and move forward. And number two, we need to just keep going and get the small businesses of America back to work. We're not going to do that if we just keep giving people money to stay at home. That's just not the right move.
And I think you bring up an important point, too, and it's, yes, there is a public health facet of this whole conversation. There is an economic facet of this whole conversation, but it's not just this or that. In fact, I mean, this month, there are a lot of people who are going to be evicted from their homes because they can't pay rent, and it's through no one's fault but the government's for shutting down the economy. I mean, there are people who are not getting paychecks. There are people who don't know exactly how they're going to pay their rent, and it's not anything that they did necessarily. They're following the law of what they were told to do in the name of public health. So when you're talking to those people across your home state, what are they saying? Are they really deterred by this latest action?
Oh, absolutely. I think people are very scared that Fauci and others are going to try to close America down again. And right now they're saying, look, we can't send our kids back to school. And I just think that's so ridiculous. Look, we can't get our economy going again if our children are not in school. How are working families going to be able to get to work? And this is something that we really got to think about. Look, I'm a doctor. I practice medicine. And we are going to have to live with this coronavirus pandemic for a little while. There's no silver bullet. There's no magical solution. But our best way through this is straight through it.
And stemming from this whole conversation, too, we've talked about how businesses being closed down are tied into this. You mentioned how schools are now part of this controversy as well, whether or not we can send our children back to school come the fall. And now mail-in voting is becoming part of it. A lot of Democrats are trying to push this new type of reform in the name of public health, but it could have much more expansive of consequences than just not only this fall, but even longer. People are wondering if this comes into play, is this going to be the new norm? So when we talk about mail-in voting, do you share concerns with many Republicans, such as in your race, for example, that it could have an effect?
Absolutely. Look, I think the president's right. Have you noticed that in the battleground states, all these Democratic governors are trying to push mail-in balloting? Look, we're not ready for something like that right now. I think the potential for fraud is very high. And I think, look, if you can go out there and protest and rip down monuments, all these leftist Democrats, well, you know what? You can show up to the polls and vote.
And when we talk about the coronavirus pandemic, too, a lot of people think that it doesn't necessarily play into the Republican strengths. However, then they'll turn that around and say, from this point, it's about building back the economy. It's about putting together a type of economy that works for people as it was prior to this pandemic. Is that the message that Republicans should be making going into the November election?
Look, I believe our President Trump created the hottest economy that we've ever seen, lowest unemployment rates that we've ever seen. People had more in their 401ks than they'd ever had, and I believe that we can do that again. But we gotta move forward together. We gotta trust the president, and what we can't do is let these left wing groups like Antifa and these leftist socialist Democrats tear this country apart. Look, my parents were immigrants to this country. I have seen the power of America. This is the greatest country on the planet, and we always come back from things because we come together. That's the power of this country. And that's why I believe we got to go on the offense against coronavirus. We got to deal with these rioters and looters in the street. They need to be going to jail for doing this stuff, and we just got to move through it.
And that's what a lot of conservative voters that I talk to say as well. They say that this election could not be more different about the direction of this country. It's not just necessarily about Joe Biden or President Trump. It's about the next generations after that, because the two different sides of the political spectrum have two very different visions for what this country should entail. And I think that this upcoming election could be the start of either way down whatever path that the American people do choose. But for all of our viewers, too, I want to give that website out. It's drmannyforsenate.com. You can learn more about Dr. Manny Sethi and his upcoming campaign, as well as all of his agenda items as well. But Dr. Manny, I appreciate you coming on and breaking down the race for us and where we stand amid this pandemic. Thank you very much.